North Carolina congressman and a member of the House Appropriations Committee, David Price, to talk about all of this. Congressman, thanks for joining us. You had a chance to hear that report from Rich Edson there, and he kind of goes the back and forth between Comey and the president that's occurring right now. And I feel like it's kind of remarkable. The former FBI director, such a powerful investigator, coming out now from this sort of moralistic stance, trying to shame the president. What are your thoughts on that? When we think about investigators supposed to be, impartial as they're conducting these investigations, and now to hear this language from Comey so openly.
Well, the point about how the president weaves this alternative web of facts and people get caught up in it, and there's no way out where one's dignity and integrity remain intact. I do think that's a realistic observation. I think of Secretary Nielsen and the circumstances under which she left Homeland Security, for example, and there are many, many more examples. But speaking of alternative takes on reality, these illusions, this kind of wishful thinking about Kim Jong-un and the situation in North Korea really just takes your breath away. And the fact that they're just ratcheting up these tests, these battlefield weapons, and now these short-range weapons, and stopping short of the out-and-out violation of the promises that were supposedly made, but still the president not only tolerates this, but continues to entertain these illusions, perpetrate these illusions about this brutal dictator, and how one would possibly hope to get an agreement in this situation.
Yeah, it's been interesting to hear even those that are close to the president talking about sort of his style as far as developing relationships with world leaders, particularly world leaders right now, particularly that are so deeply criticizing, as you mentioned, these despots, these dictators. Shifting things back to Special Counsel Mueller, would you like to see him testify before Congress? You had written that's something you'd like to hear, and you want to hear from his conclusions directly. What is it that you're looking for?
Well, I think it's essential that we hear from Mueller, especially now that we know that he objected strongly to the way his report was characterized by the Attorney General, and that the Attorney General essentially lied about that before the Congress, gave a very, very false, misleading impression about Mueller's acceptance of his 4-page supposed summary of the report. We need to untangle that. And of course, there's a lot about the Mueller report itself that we need to understand more fully. The supportive evidence.
I agree that it has to be untangled.
There's all kinds of reasons
I think some of the language, when you talk about Speaker Pelosi talking about a crime concerning Barr, and you talk about the language being untangled, I think it does need to be untangled, because the question that was asked was about a team versus Mueller directly, and I think you can. Well, there's so much talk about semantics in Washington, whether it's wall or fence or.
That's a kind word. I would call it hair splitting. I'd call it hair splitting, and I'd call it deliberately misleading. That some people could, and then but is Mueller the same as Mueller's team? And I think that discussion will go on, but ultimately, obviously, like you say, various parties want to get answers. Shifting to infrastructure, because I didn't want to let infrastructure go before I get a chance to talk with you. It's so big. The president and the Democratic leadership working out this $2 trillion deal. I guess the big question, of course, is will it come to pass? Is it enough? But the president did tweet about this, saying there's nothing easy about a U.S. infrastructure plan, especially when our great country has spent an astounding $7 trillion in the Middle East over the last 19 years. But I'm looking hard at a bipartisan plan of $1 to $2 trillion, badly needed. $2 trillion. Is that just a start? Will we actually see this happen? There's such a battle in Washington over everything, DACA, Supreme Court nominations. Just the list has been so voracious and so long. Can we get a compromise on infrastructure? Well, you're right. This is a more positive topic, or at least I hope it is, because for years now, we've looked at this need for repairing the country's infrastructure, investing in a diverse infrastructure for the future. We've looked on that as an economic imperative for the country, and something that we should be able to get together on, since we all talk about it a lot. The president has been a disappointment so far in terms of the kind of non-plan that he put forward. But like a lot of other people, I was looking very closely at the talks this past week with Chuck and Nancy and the president, and I'm hopeful that we can break out of this. There's going to have to be some way of paying for this. That's always been the challenge before with our Republican colleagues. They just aren't willing to commit to that. I am chairman of the Transportation and Housing Appropriations Subcommittee. And I have to say that we are on our way to doing a nice down payment on infrastructure. We didn't get much help from the president on that. In fact, the president's budget inexplicably actually cut infrastructure.
I mean, so much about politics is about funding and spending and where all the money goes. Congressman Price, thank you so much for talking with us today. We're running out of time, but I really appreciate it. We had a fabulous discussion. Thank you.